Today's topic in the Dresden Files RPG is the difference between werewolves, 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 wolf wares, and lycanthropes. So, does that sound confusing? It is. You see, in the Dresden Files, a classic werewolf, the first kind, is someone who uses magic to transform themselves into a wolf. This is typically kind of the most stable of all of them, from what I understand. You're just using your own magic to transform your body, but not your mind. In this form, you're not what we might think of as the wolf man, you are literally a wolf. The next kind of werewolf is a forced werewolf, a transformed werewolf. This is kind of the same thing, except someone else, against your will, has turned you into a wolf. What's the difference? Well, because it was against your will, the mind of the beast kind of takes over, and if the person that you've transformed isn't strong-willed enough, they'll totally lose themselves, and for the rest of their lives you have just a wolf. The third type of werewolf is called a Hexenwolf, and that is someone who uses someone else's magic to turn themselves into a werewolf. What's the difference? Well, unlike a forced werewolf, this is a voluntary transformation. This is usually performed via making a pact with some kind of dark entity, a demon, an outsider, a fae, and more often than not, they'll give you some kind of magic talisman that you can put on yourself to transform. In the case of Full Moon, the novel in which these appeared, they were the classic belt or garter that we find in European folklore. Hexenwolves are usually bigger and meaner than other werewolves, with one exception, which we'll get to. And they often have problems controlling the mind of the beast, even when in human form. So even when they're not transformed, it often becomes addictive. They might always want to be transformed. They'll have problems concentrating. They'll become aggressive. They'll lose themselves to baser instincts. And then when they're transformed, they can totally lose themselves in that. The fourth kind of werewolf is called a loup-garou. And this is what you might think of if, say, you're thinking of like a Skyrim-style werewolf, the kind, except it's not. I always get that confused in my mind when I'm thinking about them. A loup-garou is the biggest, baddest wolf you can imagine. It is massive. It is so powerful that we have seen them just knock down walls, cut through bars. They're immune to most forms of damage. They'll just recover. These werewolves can only be made via a curse. And it's not spread via biting. None of them actually are. It's spread via the bloodline. So your children, your children's children, and so on will also be loup-garou. These werewolves are the ones that are tied to the moon. They're the ones that are the most classic. They even have the weakness to silver. But unlike most of our modern-day werewolf folklore, the silver used to destroy a loup-garou must be inherited silver. Why? Well, in the novels, somebody states, I don't make the rules, I just know them. So a loup-garou is a very, very, very powerful monster. It is not something you want to mess with. The fifth kind of werewolf that we're going to talk about is actually a wolf were. This is a wolf with the ability to transform into a human. We've only seen one in the series, and she's very interesting. I am not entirely sure how the whole process works. All I know is that they're smarter than the average wolf. They can, at the very least from what we've seen, they can kind of teach themselves to blend in among the humans. They can speak whatever language is nearby them, the most common They still have the memories of when they were a wolf, and they can kind of shift back and forth at will, it seems. The final thing we're going to talk about is the lycanthrope. This is very different than what you might think of. A lycanthrope is someone who has the ability to transform their mind into that of the beast rather than their body. They become very aggressive. They become territorial. They become all but animals. They can still talk and think, but their pack instincts are too much. Their instinct to kill, their violence is too powerful for them to overcome. I'm not sure how one becomes a lycanthrope. I think you have to be born that way, but don't quote me on it. And they're also tied to kind of the moon phases or some other kind of outside force. So those are all the different types of werewolves in the Dresden Files. However, as the book mentions, there's nothing stopping you from playing a were anything, although they are most typically predatory animals. And remember, they do not spread via bites. As a character pointed out, that would lead to everyone becoming a werewolf. Thank you very much for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day.